Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can have had time to replenish your coffee and tea, grab a little snack. We are ready to start our 5th plenary this afternoon. This one is titled, "This is Who We Are." Stories from successful projects that strengthen language, culture, and the way of life knowledge, skills, and practices. Our first speaker that I would like to call up is Ms. Lena Ivek.
Ullukut, unnusakut, ullukut. Akagu 50 galay, anigoktun. Nunavut tautugariyaw ninga pigyak palialilaw ninganin. Tatikangnik piyun nanitinik tungaviulaw po. Sivulekaratta piyun naktualaw tuning. Piyun nalaktunitaw kinguvaliok pugun. Upperillogo piyunnarnivun. 50-odd years have passed since the courageous dream was realized by our young leaders of the day. That is when the Nunavut vision came to life. They trusted their skill because they were our descendants of ancestors of great skill. We too are here to be part of this transformative journey, becoming great ancestors for tomorrow's children who will also trust their skill. Unnusakok pasitamasi, pingayugilok tangani tapani, umakatimaniu, pingayugilok tangani ubungaksimanaga kuveagivaka. Niriunnangmik isumakaktunga tapungak papunga. Sukaima nunakakaksimayut nunatangnangmud. Tungavigimmagu atausiunik nipikun. Ullukut to all of you here in this room and those who may be joining by ikiakidjut, virtual. I first like to acknowledge our elders, our youth, our leaders in this room, and thank you to the organizers. I'm honored to be here for my 3rd time as a plenary speaker. Each time I come here to share my Nunavut perspective, I always come with hope and inspiration. And why shouldn't I? After all, it's the National Land Claim Coalition's gathering to speak as one voice about Canada. When we talk about land claims, we are speaking about our Indigenous rights and freedoms, our visions, our resilience, our community, our past, present, and future. Everything that's to do with who we are, which is the theme for this plenary session. The first time I came here to speak 6 years ago, I articulated the vision and dream behind the Pirukvik Center, which is the organization I work for and created, to realize full-time accredited Inuktitut language programs that are designed by Inuit for Inuit. At the time, we were only able to deliver programming for Inuit language, culture, and well-being through short-term ad hoc contracts. And the second time I came here to speak in 2020, I was able to share the next chapter in our story. That year, the Pirukvik Center had just launched 2 full-time certificate accredited Inuktitut language programs for adults and 1 full-time accredited diploma program to train new Inuktitut instructors. In keeping with our vision, all 3 programs were designed by Inuit for Inuit. This milestone was made possible through funding provided by the new Makigerta Development Corporation, which was created by our land claim organization, Nunavut Incorporated, to promote and support Inuit employment through training. Furthermore, the Pilotfik Center was able to partner with University of Victoria to accredit these programs. And henceforth, I fully acknowledge and thank UVic for being open to this level of collaboration. Coming from generations of ancestors who had no fear in facing the unknown, I knew the time was upon us to make a bold decision. Thoughts like, maybe it's time to pitch high. No loss at this point. We do it or we don't. It's a cause we've been building up for years so that one day it will burst through the seams and take seed to flower on its rightful ground. In 2020, we had just welcomed our first cohorts, and before coming here, I had asked some of our students to provide me their testimonials to share with you at that time. And I just like to quote one of them. Quote, "During the opening ceremony, I sat there, listening to all of you speaking Inuktitut. I sat there in awe, even not understanding one single word of what was being said. I thought to myself in amazement, almost to a level of disbelief, this is the last opening ceremony of anything that I will attend and not be able to understand anyone. I actually wanted to get up to the podium and speak to everyone and say, it was Canada that made sure I grew up knowing English and French, and it will be Pilotfik who will be responsible for taking me home." And that is very powerful. It is this yearning for a new approach to Inuit or Indigenous education that I like to showcase today. After 3 years of launching our full-time programs, we've been able to achieve our ambitions to a total of 12 cohorts to date and celebrated 46 graduates last June. And now I want to share a short video with you to really put color to what I'm talking about, to what I'm sharing. When we talk about achievement in Indigenous well-being, we like to show it in color, that is in motion and action. And so if the technician can kindly put my video on, please. Thank you.
You guys want to listen for sound like that's a whale. If you hear something, let us know. Look, sometimes you can't see them, you can hear them. That's what he carries for emergency in case he falls through. A pair of polar bear skin pants and polar bear mitts. He gets out, take off his wet clothes. He's got extra gear. That's your lifesaver. If you don't have extra gear, you stay wet. Very low chance of survival. It might be heavy in the Hummerdick at the time, but when you need it, it's never heavy enough. Yeah.
mga kayo sinakto.
Tapos nga ataw siya ano gawin mo pala yun.
Gusto ya kang itukran atau siya dito.
Umikot siya.
Ayaw ka rin ni Pinayo ko rin yakat sa rin. Ayaw ko rin naspalyan ng nasawan. Aksyo ko rin ko inuwara ko itong ngayato. Tama na no taong ito tayo majuwal na liyo katang na tayo mga rin makagagoy na liyan ni sigdang no siyo ka araw man imo majuwaro duti lang aputakang ito araw duti tayo may sunguman. Tana inupik ko sila kaya na unatok-tok at diging ita nga uma. Uhaw tayo kajak to uhad laking karuan luting tayo suman una atata mi tayo jaw bajuju ubat siya ako. Ay patuwa kay lugo nangyak sa ikuti amalo nangyanak tumikaw jisyo imayli guma kingulong may kilakpat imayli ak lutunang lunga tayo manangyanak humakaw jigit nga kanu una luati ngay lun at siya nakaw jima jaka una atilialo mata na katsikan lamakan ni
Seperti yang nanti ko si kanya kawin. Seperti yang kalan ilong na.
Oh, katitigilan na.
Mangali ay kaya ako ito ilaw ng mga ito. Oh.
Since moving to Khalid and taking the Al-Nafik program, it's been a huge difference for me for learning Inuktitut because I've become a lot more confident in understanding while someone is speaking to me in Inuktitut.
We speak with each other every day. We read, we write, we learn through technology. I think that's awesome that there's so many different ways of learning. I think it's a safe space to learn, to ask questions.
It's such a big deal here because there's so much shame growing up as an Inuk not speaking or understanding Inuktitut.
Amount of support, understanding, and encouragement has been really amazing, and it really helps me to want to keep learning.
I keep saying to myself as I go through this, I mean, man, I wish I had access to something like this when I was younger, like when I was growing up. Really grateful that it exists now. Sometimes I stop and think, and I wonder if it's a dream, but no, it's a reality, and I'm thankful that Pegukvik makes this possible. Learning Inuktitut, it's very much a reality.
So I'll just say a couple of, okay. So in closing, I just want to say that during this new international decade for Indigenous languages and this era of national reconciliation, revitalization, naturally, it is a decade for community healing. We know our story as one voice. With all the odds in the way for successful trailblazing, our Indigenous communities are still dancing, are still moving forward, are still shining in their natural and cultural talent. Nakomi.
Thank you very much, Hiva. I now call upon Tammy Steinwan Deschambeau from the Klitschko government.
My presentation come up?
You want some more water?
Sure. Yeah. Looks like I have some fans. I have to start off by saying I was kind of surprised when I registered, and well, before Christmas, I was asked if I'd be interested in doing a presentation on languages. And I said, sure, because that's what I love to do. And then when I went to register, my name was down for 3 different presentations. So I don't know where the other 2 came from, but I'm happy to share. In no way am I an expert or anything in Klintcho language or Klintcho culture or anything like that. But I feel that I do the best that I can with what I have, and I always say I leave the rest to God. And I'm happy to be here to share with you what we do in our nation. So my name is Tammy Steinwan de Chambo. Betchakon Sigoli, Akon Atlanate. So mo Atlago Heeda, and you said di what's on goods on Jailene. It's on some mods on Wamad Sige Sondani. So with den he go now what's on Keranin de Onta Gicha Lata Shakato Eshlihol Onta Gicha Lata Ninde Sakaho get Tonda Sinhi Horse Digge Tondlani Honte. So it's through my work that I did as an educator that I learned what I know about Clinchon culture. So I learned alongside my students. How do I advance? Just hit. Am I not hitting the right button? Oh, I'm hitting the wrong thing. Okay. So for this presentation here, the title is This is Who We Are, and we were asked to share stories from successful projects that strengthen language, culture, and way of life, knowledge, skills, and practices. So I just want to share a little bit that this is my first time at the gathering, so I'm hopefully people will take away some important messages from this. I feel that the answer for this presentation actually comes at the end when we hear from a participant from one of our programs. But I'd like to go back a little bit. So when I say go back, I mean where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So if we look at this map, the Land Claims Coalition Modern Treaty Map, we can see there on top of the green, the Clinchon area. And more specifically, between Great Bear Lake and Great Slave Lake, we have three, I always call them our three maps that pertain to us as Clinchon people. The red outline is our Clinchon lands, that's the 39,000 square kilometers of land where we have surface and subsurface rights. And then the olive color, kind of brownish, is the Wik-AG boundary. And then the green, which is really important, is our traditional land area that Mofwi identified for us, our traditional lands. So when we look back, oh, I don't have my notes. Can I bring my computer? I always have backup, right? Okay. Where am I? It's not the right one. Okay, here we go. So at one time, this is how we lived. Our people, like many of our ancestors, lived off the land, following the animals, living a very simple lifestyle. Their way of life was deeply connected to the land and environment. Our people lived to survive. Looking back, one could say that our people had it tough. But when you are in it, that is all you know, and you do what you need to do to make it to the next day. So you're basically surviving to live. In August of 1921, on the shores of Marion Lake, in what was then known as Fort Ray, Mofwi, leader of our people, signed Treaty 11. As part of that, Mofwi signed, shook hands, and stated, "Di sanata di de nili di de nagot on leninde, acids agot on hulin hanile." So basically, as long as the sun shines, the rivers flow, and the land does not move, we will not be restricted from our way of life. People came to get their payments for every man, woman, and child. There was much gathering, feasting, and celebrating by playing hand games and dancing. As a people, we continued to live doing what we knew best, being out on the land to hunt, fish, trap, taking care of family, and later in communities, helping each other. In January 1972, Chief Jimmy Bruno, a successor of Mofui, opened a school in Edzo, which still stands today. So Chief Jimmy Bruno asked for this school for many years before the government finally agreed. My grandfather at that time was an interpreter, and he told me stories that the government offered him all kinds of things, even a bar. And Chief Jimmy Bruno sat there staring at him, and he said he used to chew gum. It must gum or chew or something, and he said he sat there and his mouth was just moving, and he was furious. He said, what am I going to do with a bar? What are my people going to do with a bar? How's that going to help them in the future? No, I don't want a bar. And he just kept saying the same thing, I want a school, I want a school. And finally, the government gave in. Today, it is home to an early childhood center and school programming junior kindergarten to grade 12. Chief Jimmy Bruno wanted his people to work at the school for his children to be taught his way and the white man's way. Later, elder and school board member, who is now the late Elizabeth Mackenzie, in her reflection of Chief Jimmy Bruno, shared that the old chief thought far into the future for us. He wanted us to be strong like two people. So today, we use the guidance of past leaders like Mofui, Chief Jimmy Bruno, and Elizabeth Mackenzie to be Tlinchon and live with a focus on Tlinchon language, culture, and way of life. Many have continued to live the traditional way until their passing. We still celebrate with dancing. We make items to use and adorn the fabric with our flowers using beads or embroidery thread. Our faith and spirituality continues. Last summer in August 2022, we celebrated the signing of Treaty 11, 1 year late due to COVID. We had a reenactment of the signing. The annual assembly meetings, a $200,000 hand game tournament, many traditional events, lots of traditional food, a talent show, the museum was open. All kinds of things happened during that time. It was a time to celebrate and feed the fire, to give thanks in our traditional way. Our future depends on what we do today. We must never forget the vision and messages of our past leaders, Mofui, Chief Jimmy Bruno, and Zabe Mackenzie. We need to carry the vision of our previous leaders into the future. As a government, Tlinchon government, we must ensure that our past leaders' messages are evident in the programming and planning of our people, for our people, language, culture, and way of life, to be strong like two people. For us as staff, We take direction from our strategic intentions that we created together as a nation. This document will guide our government and its operations for the next 4 years. Intention number 2 focuses on revitalizing our language, culture, and way of life. So in following our strategic intentions, we plan accordingly. In language, we have presently we have a new regional language coordinator hired. We work hard to work with other community people that are strong in their language. So language coordinators, dictionary keeper, archivist, transcriber, these are positions that we just recently got funding for as our budget was passed. I'm very grateful for that. We work hard to offer a variety of language programs for all ages, the young children all the way up to the adults, even the elders. So we're trying to do as much as we can in terms of language programming. We have radio stations in each of our communities. Not all of them are running, so that's another area of focus. So we're trying hard to also document, gather research, make sure that we have information that'll stay with future generations to learn from, to use, and to move on into their future and teaching their children. We're also working hard to create content for Clinchon TV. And there's a bunch of other things that we're doing in terms of language revitalization in our region. In looking at our cultural programming, yesterday I shared as part of one of the presentations some of the programs that we run. Clinchon Imber program is one. These are some photos. I'm not going to go through each program. Clinchon Dontats AD, this is where we have an elder or a harvester paired up with a youth, and they harvest from the land, and then at the end of the day, they share back their food with people from the community, elders, widows, those that are wanting traditional food. Trails of Our Ancestors is a very popular program. It's been running since 1988, as Dr. John Bizot shared the other day. And this program, we have so many seats, 6 people to a canoe, and we can get over, throughout our whole region, a couple hundred applications. This program here is new. What we're trying to do is document using a 360-degree camera all of our routes so that these routes are documented, especially the significant sites along the routes. And this is also shared back with the elders in the senior home. And our hope is that even though they can't go out, they can use this technology to share stories that they remember from those specific areas. So in a sense, they're still contributing to our programs. And we found that this is also another way to bring a little bit of healing and happiness and wellness to our elders. Clinchon Broadcasting, so this is all about documenting. We have a lot of projects that are happening right now, and this is one area where I feel is very important. When I first went to university in '95, I had one of my history classes, I had to do a project on my community. I couldn't believe the number of libraries that were on campus, and I couldn't find not even 3 books on my community. So I think that's when it really hit me that it's up to us to document about ourselves. We have other types of programming that's happening. So when I'm thinking back to all the work that we do, as Lena has stated, it's up to us. We're trying to build and strengthen our identity in our people through our programs. Through our programs, we are filling the gap, creating opportunities to share, practice, and revitalize our language, culture, and way of life. We are taking back who we are. We are reclaiming our language, culture, and traditional ways. And it is our hope that the teachings from our programs move into people's daily lives, and it just becomes a natural part of them. I reached out to one of my staff members who loves Trails of Our Ancestors, and she's gone many times. And I said, Triva, can you tell me why you love trails and why you like to go year after year? And this is what she wrote. Quality time on our traditional territory in a natural environment. Opportunity to travel with skilled traditional people, learning about the trails and area, our history, traditions, and place names. Listening should be and hearing traditional stories and legends, eating fresh traditional foods, ability to harvest wildlife. It's a unique opportunity, sightseeing, spiritual connection to the land. We learn about the laws of the land, realizing the things we take for granted, so when you're in the community, maintaining a traditional lifestyle while we're being out there, teamwork and building new friendships. It's peaceful, healing. You get to meditate. Off the grid allows for one to refocus. Date and time do not exist when you're out there. Healthy environment, free of drugs and alcohol. Move from a fast pace to a much slower and focused environment. It's an adventure. So I just want to share that I really feel that the work that is being done here, this is my first time at this conference, the work that's being done here is very important. And I feel also too that the implementation is also extremely important. And we all have that role to play. We all need to do our part. And I feel too that the work that we do here, sometimes it gets tough, even in the communities, it gets tough. But we need to keep in mind, who are we doing this for? It's for the children yet to come. Some of you said, I think yesterday, that for where we are now, it took like 50 years to get here. We don't want it to be another 50 years before something great happens. And we all have that ability to make things great today for our people so that it's better for the children that are yet to come. And in one of my presentations, I showed the circle of where we are, where we were at our best. That was in the past. We're slowly coming there. And hopefully once we get to being at our best, we stay there. Masi.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I now call on Velma and Mark, Little Simon Carmack's First Nation. Just you?
Mark's coming out.
Yeah, a second.
How do you work the clicker? Not sure how to work this, the clicker here. Oh, okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Velma Albert. I'm from Little Salmon Carmack's First Nation. Carmack's is in the Yukon, almost in the center of Yukon. I'll show you a picture of it. I just want to say that I'm a member of the Salmon Carmacks First Nation, but I'm also a member of the Wolf Clan. Our culture is, we have two crests, the Wolf Clan and the Crow Clan, so, and we follow our mother side, like the matriarch system. So. First of all, I would like to honor and pay respect to the Anishinaabe Algonquin people whose unceded land and traditional territory that we're able to present and work on today. And my co-presenter is Mark Nelson. He'll be coming up to do the second part of the presentation. And thank you, Mark, for doing that. The presentation overview will be on the history of the Tegi Cho Hudan people, our self-governing traditional law and program. Our D team is one of our programs that we have at our First Nations, Aunties and Uncles Retreat, long time learning program, and Mark will cover the Uncles Retreat and a language program that we're proposing to do. This is our Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation territory. I think I got the pointer. Can you see there? Oh, no, you can't. Anyways, there's the Yukon in the bottom part of the picture, and Carmacks is right above Whitehorse. Whitehorse, the capital city of Yukon. And Little Salmon Carmacks traditional territory is above there in the red. And little bit history about Carmacks and Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation. The people came from two major parts around Carmacks. Carmacks is, there were people all around the area, but our people came from Little Salmon Village, which is about 40 miles east of what the town is now, Carmacks. And it had about 100 settled people staying there, you know, at the time before the contact of non-First Nations. And people all around the area came, and Little Salmon was the main gathering place. They had a main store, a trading post. Taylor and Roy ran the trading post at the time. It was a main stop for the steamboats at the time, so our First Nations people and other people around the area had minor contract, or they worked for the steamboat by cutting the woods and having it piled up along the Yukon River there. And Sonjek area is right in the Northern School, just west of Carmacks, not very far, almost right in the town, but it's two rivers that meets, Yukon River and the Northern School River, and our people hunt and fish in that area. Was really rich for fishing. And people from the west coast came, and they traded fur and beads and whatever they brought with them and what we can give them for fur and so forth. So we had really good kind of relationship with West Coast Native people and all the people around the Yukon area. In that area was about 50 families, and again, it was a main stagecoach building for non-First Nations that stopped there. Later on, Taylor and Roy moved their trading post to Carmacks area from Little Salmon. And yeah, there was a lot of trading in that area. We had sad times in our era as well, just like most of the First Nations people in this room. Our people were taken to the Indian residential schools. There were 6 locations in Yukon. 5 were in Yukon, and 1 was at Lower Post, which is the BC-Yukon border. And yeah, so there were Chutla Residential School, Whitehorse Baptist School, Aklavik Anglican Indian Residential School, and St. Paul's in Dawson City, Yukon Hall in Whitehorse, Yukon, and Lower Post was the BC-Yukon. So Little Salmon Carmacks, they were in that area, Little Salmon Village and Sonjek area. And then around the 1960s, they were moving the policy, Western or federal policy was changing where children had to go to school and the men were working now in the coal mine. And so things were changing for our First Nations people. They were coming off the land. Many people still trap and do their economic in that way, but they started moving towards the community because children were, had to go to school and so forth. So they were talking about moving the First Nations from the Sonjek area over across the river in another location. And so they were talking with some hereditary chiefs who spoke for the First Nations people, but the First Nations government, or the ban at the time was not developed yet. So they spoke with a couple of people who spoke with people in the community, and they really didn't want to move to the areas that they wanted to, but they were enforced to move to areas that they didn't want to. So they settled in those areas. And in about 1970s, that's when they start to really have like band offices open and have contribution funding agreement given to them. Before, they didn't have any funding or anything like that. DIA told them how to spend their money, what the funding was for, how much money was for housing, how much money was for social issues and social funding. With those programs, we've seen lack of language and culture programs during these times. And then in 1997, July 21st, we ratified our self-government agreement, and we were able to negotiate our funding right from the federal government through fiscal transfer. Our citizens were happy to see that they can spend the money like how they see fit, rather than somebody telling us what we need. We can say what we need. Elders start to talk about the Dunk-E, which means that our way, like how should we do our way? And they were seeing for a while that the First Nations government continued to be in the way of DIA. And so they were saying, like, now that we have self-government, we want to do things our way. We want to make our government, not the system, the DIA way of doing their government. So we talked about bringing back our culture and our language and more. So this is a picture of our treaty document. From our treaty document to our culture. And then a slide here on our self-government taking the high road, Little Salmon Workshop summary. And this is where the elders had really given directions that we want our way, we want our language, we want our culture, we want our identity back. We want to provide this identity, our Northern Shoshone identity, pass it on to our younger generations. We have people outside our community who's coming back and want to really learn our way, and some of them were born somewhere else and they're returning back wanting to learn our way. So we have to be ready with the cultures and programming to teach our young people back. But our four traditional principle is respect, caring, and sharing, and teaching. So not only it's the young people's responsibility to learn our way and our language, but it's our responsibility as elders and as older people to teach our younger people and take that time to just teach them that, because just because they're Northern Shoshone people, it doesn't mean that they're going to know the way. We have to still teach them. We have to remember that, our people had gone through the dark era of residential school in the past, so we need to respect that they may not know our Northern Shoshone ways, so we have to teach them that. Before, like the other speaker was talking, Tammy, she spoke about that good place that we were at. We were at that good place at one time as well, prior to the contact of non-First Nations. But what we've practiced and what we're bringing back now is, we hunted food, we exercise for our physical, we address, like the medicine wheel, we address the 4 parts of the medicine wheel, the physical, the mental health, the emotional, and spirit. So we did a lot of walking and a lot of hunting during the time. We hunted big games. We fished for various freshwater fish. We picked berries on the land and medicine on the land. To address our mental health, we drum and we sing and we talk to elders. We had talking circles and sharing, and we stick gamble, and we like to laugh and have fun as well. Emotional and spiritual, we do reflection while we're picking the berries, even while we're sewing, and we're quietly picking up the 2 beads at a time. And then tacking it down. We're reflecting on our life, on different issues, and we're thinking, analyzing it, and thinking of how to address it and how to fix the problems. We like to talk with elders and other people who would like to listen to us, and hearing elder story, and we have a personal relationship with the Creator, and we pray in the morning and then at the evening time as well. One program at our First Nations that we have now is called the Doli Team, and short for that, they call it the D Team. We have elders. We have Elder Storybook, Auntie's Retreat, and Uncle's Retreat. Doli Team, we have elder tradition, like I mentioned, those are just storybooks that were made for all people, and people can read it, and there's stories behind it. We have an artist in the community who draws those pictures. We had a genealogy research where we trace our ancestors back to way back, almost 1500s. We know stories of where we come from different elders in the area, and we're very fortunate that we done this when we did it, because most of our elders are passing away, and with that, they're taking the information that they have. Traditional laws, most of you have traditional laws that you follow. We have a great number of them in the Northern Tachoni area. Our people, it governs our people behavior and what to do and what not to do. For example, when we kill a moose, we give thanks for that moose for giving its life to feed us in the community. So we have to be thankful and grateful. And there's one thing that we never do is make fun of any animal parts or moose meat or anything like that. So children are taught that at a very early age. Not true. We're doing a potlatch handbook. We have a system of how we do our potlatch, and when somebody passes away in Northern Tachoni in the Yukon. For example, I belong to the Wolf clan. If I should pass away, it would be the opposite clan that's being hired. It would be the Crow clan that's hired, and the Wolf people would put in the money at the potlatch. And when I say being hired, I mean like for the cooks, the servers, the ushers, the people that works at the funeral, the grave diggers, and so forth. And so this part, most of us know, but they're younger people, like I mentioned, that are coming back to our community, don't really know all the do's and don'ts about it. So we're developing a handbook, step-by-step handbook. We'll teach them right from when somebody passes away, the family get together, they have their family meeting to find out if they're Crow or Wolf, and then they hire. So that's what we're working on now, and that should be done by June 2023. So we're really happy. It's going to the printers soon to be printed out, and then we're going to show this to our General Assembly in June. So we're happy about that. Auntie's Retreat, it's a program where our women go to a retreat outside of the community, and it's only for women during that time. Here's a picture of a lady here. She's holding a drum, and she made that and the drum bag at the Auntie's Retreat. She looks happy, she's smiling, she's really happy that she made something that give her identity as a Northern Tachoni woman. And there's more women over there too that's holding their drum. Yeah, so at Auntie's Retreat, they learned, it's a 3-day event. They have a daily feast where they have, good healthy foods are provided to them all day long. They learn to prepare different foods like bannock and traditional food, elders counseling, talking circles, storytelling by elders. They also sew moccasins and learn how to bead and do different indigenous artwork. Beading and sewing keychains, they drum and sing, they make drums, elders teaching the roles of woman. With elders' guidance, the women hunt for large game or smaller games like rabbits and gophers. They fishing with fish nets. They learn how to set the fish net on the lake, or they use a pole to fishing. They prepare the meat once they catch the fish or bigger game. They prepare the meat, how to dry it, how to cut it, and even build a rack to dry the meat on. And they do berries and medicine picking as well, and they learn how to do learn the different medicines in the bush. Here's a picture of a vamp. First, they sew the beads onto the vamp, and then they sew the vamp onto the bottom of the moccasin. And the third slide, there's the finished moccasin with a beaver around it. So they were really happy to have that done. My co-presenter will come up now, Mark, and present the Uncle's Retreat.
So I'm going to be really quick because I know our chair is pressed for time, and I'll try and do him solid. My name is Mark Nelson. I should mention that I'm standing in for Ed Schultz today, our Director of Governance, who wasn't able to make it and sends his regrets, but I'll try and cover a little bit about what was important to him to say about the Uncle's Retreats as a really important chance for men of different generations to come together and practice on the land and practice Dun Key together. And going forward this way. And really learning the skills and building the confidence to be able to live on the land and feel comfortable, and to bring different generations of men together to be learning and to really create those support networks. Here's a great one where you see a young fellow holding the mic there for Elder Bill Van Vlies. He's teaching fish nets while there's other elders around and adult men. So it's a really important opportunity for that. And maybe I'll just sum up to say one success story was seeing a young man who really didn't go hunting very much after the end of one of these retreats turn around and ask his uncle, hey, would you take me hunting this fall and go out in the land? We thought that was a great success. That was exactly the point of why these were brought together. And so that's the land-based piece. And then on the language side, as Velma mentioned, the Little Salmon Carmacks is in the process of setting up an adult immersion program, similar to what Champagnejac First Nation has done, where it's a real intensive focus on adult learners committing to a 2-year period and really getting a high level and on their way to fluency. So bringing the land piece together with the language piece. I think I'll leave it there. Velma's going to take you home.
Okay, so we have one more program here at our First Nation. It's in the lands, and it's heritage program. And them too, they're bringing back different culture and listening to the elders, but the direction that our elders had given us. So they have they do different Northern Tachoni language, and they post the posters around the community for people to see. We have canning for salmon. And the third slide is really interesting. If they caught a moose, then they bring the hide in, and it's a lot of work doing the hide to fix it to be a good product to sew mittens or moccasins or mutlocks for people, and just to show the young people. But there's a couple of youth there working on the hide, and they're really happy for that. So They harvest in the fall. They participate to stay in camps for about 7 days outside of the community too. They have community feasts and treat them really well because they're learning and we want to keep them there. They build caches, they learn to prepare the moose, and they set fish nets and learn to dry it. We have an interpretive center, and there too we would like to show people, our visitors to Carmacks, that who we are and as a people back before the contact. So this is a high tent of people back before the contact, how we lived, and our traditional clothing there. And yeah, that's just, actually she's my mother. She's dressed in about 1990 in traditional clothing for that part. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you to Lena, Tammy, Velma, and Mark for a wonderful presentation. This session actually is really close to my heart, and all the work that we did at Champanejac First Nation, and the whole concept that I think I've heard through the whole idea of self-government is how we say it in Southern Shoshone is Dunke, our way. And as we get more and more young people are educated in the Western culture, but also growing up in their own culture, I hear many times statements of living in two worlds. I actually only live in one world. I utilize aspects of both, but I live in one, and that's the one that I come from. And so I think more and more it's great to see that the power of our self-government and land claim agreements are enabling us to take real control of our own destinies, and to see the amazing work that comes from across the country. I think we can, we gave up a lot, but I think by not just standing pat and letting things continue to come to us, we've taken a lot more control, and the future is definitely a lot brighter for our young ones. So, thank you again.